hello, everyone. Welcome to the road trip. I am DWTT, and I got Sam G with me. How you doing, Sam?
I'm okay, Gary. I'm okay. How you doing?
Cool. Yeah, Sam was out celebrating. Was it Constitution Day? Is that right? Is that what did I have? Did I
Yes,
say it right?
Constitution Day is our big day of celebration here once a year, where we celebrate that in I think it's 1815. I think been a long time since I checked my history with it, but yeah, I think it's 1815. We signed our constitution into they signed their constitution, which basically declared that we were our own government upon ourselves, outside of the joint government then that was Sweden, Denmark, and Norway at the time. So we became our own government and basically our own nation at the time, basically.
Nice. Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
We do history here. We're a teaching channel, right, Gary? That's what we do.
We do it all. We do it all. Whatever you want, we got it.
Yes. We do it all. We do it all.
Yes. Yeah. So season is coming to an end.
Not soon enough for us, I think. Not soon enough for
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
And as my little, I don't know, what do they call it underneath my name? We're 1 point from basically securing hopefully I guess I think 1 point gets us Champions League. I don't think anybody's overcoming a 10-goal difference on us.
Yeah, I think pretty much. Even if we lose against Newcastle tomorrow, I do think we're going to beat Southampton on the last day, because they are absolutely terrible. And so I do think we'll be getting Champions League. True. No matter what. But you've got to remember the other teams have to win as well, right? Which is not guaranteed. So
No, I hear that, and we're in the chat right now. Early for us.
Big up, Mr. Tom. Hope you're doing okay, buddy.
Yes, same here. Same for me. He said, "Education. What the hell? No, you know what? We were doing education when you were here. We just some of the time it might come out as nonsense."
Turn this into open university. That's what we've done.
So sometimes it comes off as nonsense. Sometimes it actually is educational. You learn something.
Bit of everything. You get a bit of everything here on the road trip.
Yeah. No, I was hoping for that drop in points to happen yesterday. I did watch those games.
Oh, Tottenham. What Tottenham? They are so shit. 21 losses now. 21 losses. I mean, it is ridiculous. And everyone's losing their brains over, oh my God, they might win the Europa League. It's like, that's a rubbish tournament. Tottenham has still lost 21 games. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know what they have in them that will get them across the line in that game.
I think Manchester United. Well, the thing is, right, I was reading a bit about this week. The thing is, when they play each other, Tottenham and Manchester United, recently, like the last 3 or 4 games, I think it's 3 games, Tottenham have beaten Manchester United. So Tottenham have like the recent form against Manchester United when they've played each other. But now both teams are so crap, you just don't really know what's going to happen. But for me, because Tottenham always lose important games, right? So that's, for me, that is probably why you're not Manchester United are going to end up winning this, because Tottenham they're just going to bottle it once again, right? That's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I want both teams to lose, but if I'm going to have a team lose, and I'm going to say that out loud, because I'm not going to say who wins because I don't care. Yeah. But I do care. If I'm going to care about who loses, then I'd rather have that team lose. I think we have enough already on our plate in terms of banter, right? Our plate is full. It's full. That would be another plate.
I like what Tom's described here. The El Crapico is El Crapico. Yes, it is a terrible final with 2 terrible teams.
Yes, and joining us just to complete the set, we've got Spencer in the house. Welcome to the show, Spencer, coming to you from the couch where he deserves to be, because the couch is too much. It's over and beyond what he offers. So
it's overstimulating, shall we say, right? So I have to sit on the floor. No, I'm just kidding. It's more comfortable for the back. But how's everybody doing on a happy Saturday? Busy, but eventful, happy Saturday.
Good to see you, Spencer.
Yeah, no, it's doing good. Yeah, so we're talking about
El Crapico.
El Crapico. That happens in, I guess, in about 90 minutes. Somebody will win a trophy and get a chance to play in the Champions League with a chance to win the biggest trophy the world has ever seen in league play. What do you think, Spencer?
Well,
the fact that you hesitated means you have nothing good to say.
Well, I hope Palace wins the FA Cup. I really do.
Oh, that's what's happening in 90 minutes. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, the El Crapico happens next week, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got.
I'm jumping the gun. I was literally talking. I was talking to a United buddy at work, and I got a United friend that I know at the PetSmart I'm going to talk to today. But the Europa League final, now that Champions League clubs don't go into it, it's kind of diminished a little bit. Still silverware, but it feels a little bit different, right?
Yeah, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't carry the same weight of you get the Champions League if you win it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it doesn't really, like, there is a big gap, and we're even seeing it in the league play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of those teams that finished in the bottom 8,
not very good.
They no.
That's terrible.
But I think it's really weird. I think it's really weird, the dynamic. People are like, oh, well, United's had a better season than us. Are you sure about this? I mean, great. They get to play for one trophy, but where's their outlook for next year? I mean, I understand the whole silverware or whatever, that argument crowd, but you'd really trade where we are, or our progression for
what really pisses me off when it comes from Arsenal fans with that argument, like, oh, well, Manchester United or Tottenham, either of them, they're going to end up having a better season than us. And it's like, shut your fucking mouths, you idiots, because if we would have won that trophy, if we would have won the League Cup instead of Newcastle, or if we would have won the Europa League now, all those same fans would be fucking whining and moaning and saying, oh, it's only the League Cup. Oh, it's only the UEFA Europa League.
And it's covering up the bad things, right? That's usually what it is.
Man.
It covers up all of the negative parts of the squad by winning a trophy, when it's like, wait a second, so everybody else is a positive. For Arsenal, we're just covering up how bad we really are. It just covers up the negative side of the team. Yeah, for me, it's that's why I take performance over results, because if somebody says you won a trophy, that's good, right? I'm like, well, not really. Not in this case, right? Chelsea, Manchester United, and that team both could win a trophy, and it does nothing for them in terms of their performance. Was it really?
Trophy, right? I've said this so many times. A trophy is a trophy. Yes, if I would like to win the trophy, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's a good trophy. I'm not going to pretend like, I'm really missing out on winning that. I'm really jealous that they're going to win that. No, I'm not. I'm not jealous they're going to win the Europa League, because it's a terrible tournament.
Yeah.
I would love for Arsenal to win it. Don't get me wrong. I think that would have been great, even in the earlier ambitions when Champions League clubs dropped down. But I mean, that's what it is. It's a trophy. I absolutely love to win it, but I don't think it's a real benchmark of who you are. I think the league is always the ultimate benchmark. You got 38 competitions, and the best of 38 tells you where you need to work on and where you're at.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be a stepping stone to the next phase of progress, right? And all Manchester United has done is gotten worse. Their worst team to win their league. Their worst team to win the league. No, think about it. Every time they've won a trophy, it seems like they've gone back in the league form.
Yeah,
so is it really?
As Tottenham, as Tom correctly points out there in that comment, the lowest league position of any two teams in a European final. Yeah. I mean, those two teams are. If you take away the bottom three that are just terrible, they are the two bottom teams in the league. They are 16th and 17th. They're terrible.
I think it's why, like I said this during the Carabao Cup final or Carabao Cup semifinal. I really meant this, and obviously didn't come to fruition. But when we lost the first game at home, I thought it was okay, just because it's 2 or 3 weeks later. It's a different team 2 or 3 weeks later that could show up differently. It obviously didn't come to fruition, but these cup competitions, especially in like the early stages of some of these ones, like the team you saw, PSG, for example. Completely different squad than what we saw in the league phase. Like, it's not even remotely. They kicked our ass. if we're honest. But we kicked their ass at home back in October, November. But by the time it mattered in May, they took care of it. So but if that had been like, say, a true league phase, PSG would have been completely probably left behind in the dust, right? Because I think they finished 23rd, 24th, and they're going to finish 23rd, 24th, I think, in the league phase. And they're going to end up finding a way to potentially maybe win their first European trophy. Mm-hmm. So, again, I think these cup competitions, although they matter, I don't think they're a true benchmark of who you are. So, yeah, you get that excitement of the cup run and we can win this cup. But where's your outlook for next season? United fans, they win the Europa League. They're absolutely going to sit there and talk about we need 10 transfers. But you just won a trophy.
I mean,
you had a great season.
This is hi to Rosie real quick. Hey, Rosie. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, Rosie. Hope you're having a nice day. I was just saying that, these are two completely different tournaments, right? I mean, or trophies or competitions. I call it two completely different. I mean, the ultimate competition is the league, like Spencer said. That is the ultimate because you're playing 38 games from August to May. And so much can happen. You've got to deal with so many different things. And, you're going to have form dips and there's so much you have to go through. So it's a marathon. You have to win a marathon, right? Whereas the Europa League is you're not playing a marathon, you're playing far few games, even though it's spread over a amount of time, but you're playing far few games. But you look at the teams you're playing, right? In the Premier League, you're playing the top teams in Europe and the world, and then you're playing a lot of very good teams. Like I've said, the reason why these two teams, Manchester United and Tottenham, are doing so well in the Europa League is because the level of the Premier League with the teams further down the table are comparatively so much better than the similar type of teams that are in the other leagues. Like teams finishing 5th and 6th and 7th in La Liga or Serie A or Ligue 1 in France, they are nowhere near the same level as the teams finishing 5th, 6th, 7th in the Premier League. And that you see the gulf in quality. You saw the two semi-final teams now in the Europa League. You've got Bodø/Glimt, a tiny Norwegian team that done, yes, it's a Cinderella story. They've done like a really special thing, but they are a tiny club, and they got completely done over by Tottenham over those two legs. There was a huge gulf in quality, and an even bigger gulf in quality in the other semi-final between Manchester United and Athletic Bilbao, where Bilbao, you just saw they got crushed over two legs. They were rubbish. I'm gonna put my neck on the line here and say, out of all the semi-finals I've watched in over quite a few years now, and I like to watch the semi-finals and the finals of the major European competitions. Those two semi-finals were the worst I've seen in terms of one of the teams being so poor quality. Normally, you have two good teams play each other, and it's a good game, right? Sometimes they're boring, but at least they're two good teams. You had in both these semi-finals, one of the teams was so much poorer than the other team. So the golfing quality in that competition is so low. What you're winning, you can only play who you're playing against. I get that. That's the team against you. You have to beat them, right? But when the quality of those teams is so poor, that means something. It means the competition is not very good, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's like, you're winning a cup, but the cup is not any good. So these things matter. The context matters when it comes to,
the only caveat, Sam, and I agree with you on this because it does diminish it without the Champions League clubs in there and everything. But the trophy is not really the main prize. It's that ticket to the Champions.
Oh, that's the prize is absolutely,
yeah. So it's like it's weird. I don't know how that. I don't know because obviously the Europa League, I think, in the mentality of people, or even the what's the word I'm looking for, evaluation of quality of trophy, is going to diminish probably in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to take time because people's still mindset is still Europa League, Champions League team. They're still thinking this, even though it didn't happen. Not everybody that follows the sport actually follows the sport, right? So they obviously don't know that, the Champions League clubs weren't in there. They're still thinking under the old mindset.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the outlook, man. I think that's, let's just see how the Tottenham and United fans are after the final.
Yeah.
You know what? This is where they need to start looking at how, the way the rules work, right? Because when you have two such really bad teams in their leagues getting a ticket to the Champions League, right? One of them will get a ticket, either Tottenham or Manchester United will get a ticket to the Champions League for winning that trophy. And they both were in essentially relegation battle, until late in the season. I mean, that is just something's wrong. I don't think when they made all these rules and everything, they weren't expecting two teams that were in the Europa League to be this bad, right? And then I've changed my mind when it comes to the Europa League. I'm going to admit that, because I was previously with the UEFA Cup and then the first iteration of the Europa League. I thought it was really unfair for the teams in the UEFA Cup, or now the first version of the Europa League. I thought it was really unfair for them that Champions League teams that weren't good enough to go through in the Champions League, they would drop into the UEFA Cup or Europa League and get a second chance. I thought that was really unfair. It's like, why are they getting a set? They were lost. They weren't good enough in the group stage. Why are they getting rewarded with a second chance of being one of the best teams in another competition? It's like you're getting a second chance to win a competition. Yeah. I thought that was really unfair. But then now when I see the quality of the teams in the Europa League without those clubs coming in, it's like, okay, now I sort of get it, because the teams left in the competition are fucking terrible, So yeah. I've changed my mind on that.
Yeah, the competitiveness is gone in it now, because, as you said, the golf in the leagues is shown up, right? How can the worst two teams outside of the relegation teams in one league be better than everybody else? You know what I mean? And that's been, and even Chelsea would say they're having not such a good year as well. So I had a couple of people, and I'll continue on with this thought. Chris Nick's in the house. Thanks for joining us. He says hi. Russ says hi to you too, and Chris. And Dad's in the house. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, sir.
Dad. And no, I think for me, it almost shows like you want to make your leagues a lot more competitive, and it's almost like when you have the three relegated teams at the bottom and the six potential teams that could get promoted, the four potential 6 teams that can get promoted up. Maybe you create a tournament with those 9 teams somehow. And that way, at least when you get back into whoever makes it to the Premier League, you're going to have – we're looking for competitive games now, right? I know there's a lot of money in it, but I think the problem with the money thing is that's why the money should trickle down anyways, right? Not to get destroyed in the Premier League, right? When you've seen what happened to Luton, right? They came up, and now they got demoted again, I think. So you're not helping English football by giving them Premier League for one season. It didn't really help them. They've gotten even worse in terms of where they sit in English football. So for me, you create more competition. I think if you maybe not three teams move up, maybe 2, and one of those relegated teams gets a chance to move up as well, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that way, at least you create some more competitiveness in the league itself.
It's an interesting concept, because they do this. There's several leagues that do that, including the Premier League here in Norway. What happens is with the Premier League here in Norway, what happens is the 2 bottom teams get relegated, and then the team that's third from bottom, they will play a playoff with the team that's third in the division under. So in the division under, right, which is like the equivalent to the championship, the first 2 teams will get direct promotion, and then the third team will then play a playoff game against the third worst team in the Premier League, and they will play playoff home and away, basically home and away, and that'll be an aggregate, basically, and away goals don't count. So it's like if you've got the same amount of goals after the 2 games, you're playing extra time and penalties. So they play home and away, and then they decide the winner of that will either stay in the Premier League or get promoted.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it's more for competitiveness and creating more buzz for the teams or for the league itself. So that's one reason why I thought, and as you said, it's probably something I may have even heard already. If half of Europe are in the Champions League, then of course.
Yeah, that's another point, right? Because you look at the way the Champions League works now, right? You got 5 Premier League teams going into the Champions League next season.
I thought they said 6 could come or something ridiculous like that.
Well, we got 5 this season because of the coefficient, because of our performance collectively the last 5 years or whatever it is, how it's worked out. But yeah, so we've got this extra place now, 5. I don't know if we can get 6. I really hope we don't, because it's going to get ridiculous. I mean, if we end up with 6 teams in the Champions, that's just a joke.
Well,
it dilutes the competition so much, right? It's not right.
Yeah, I mean, that means that whoever sits 5th could be out. Well, we'll be out then, because if one of Manchester United and that team are going to get in. AFC always joins us. He says, "Yeah, another trophy Arteta couldn't win." I don't think we care about that right now. I don't care about it right now. I mean, yes, I cared about it then.
If you're not in it, you can't win it if you're not in it, right? We were in the Champions League, which is a much better competition, right? So
I wanted to win it then, but he didn't do it, and I will stand on this hill. I'm not. How am I expecting him to do what people are asking him in 6 years of a career? And no Messi on my team, because that's the only manager that I can think of in his first 6 years won all the trophies, and he happened to have Messi on his squad. So tell me another manager who's done that.
Because Gary, this isn't about Arteta. This really isn't, and I've really been thinking about this in the last 2 weeks. It's about you being right about Arteta or me being right about Arteta.
Yeah.
He just happens to be the object of conversation, so people can slam dunk on each other.
Yeah, no, that's why.
To me, that's what it is at this point.
That's what we're talking about in terms of experiences. Why I didn't want him in the first place. But if you're gonna bring him in, which Arsenal has done, you have to help him, and they did not.
There's a really good.
This is an Arsenal problem in the sense that they brought him in. Like, if this is like bringing in a youngster and then saying, "I want you to do all these things, but I won't support you." Like a Yamal doesn't play as well as he does if he doesn't have a Rafinha next to him, right? Because he has to do all that stuff. He doesn't have somebody to offset. They just double team him like think about it. If they throw 5 guys at Yamal like they do at Saka, he'll look just like Saka, right? Not really being able to influence the game as much as possible. But when you put in a Lewandowski and a Rafinha, right, it makes it a lot easier for him to do what he does, right?
True.
So for me, I'm like, you know what? We don't have that right now, and that's what we need. We need to have a Lewandowski. We need to have a Rafinha playing off of
exactly. And the difference is huge, right? Again, context, right, which is very important when you're trying to explain things, right? The managers who have come straight in and won things with Barcelona or Real Madrid, right? They're Barcelona, they're Real Madrid. They have really good teams, really good squads, really good players, right? When Arteta came in, he took over a completely, most of the squad was terrible. He took over that Emery had and the last remnants of the Wenger era. He took over that squad and he had to rechange, redo, replace all of it, right? I mean, that alone is going to take you a few seasons, right, to do that process. So, I mean, there's context to these things, right? And the last time we were in the Europa League final was with Emery, and we got absolutely smacked, didn't we, by Chelsea? So, yeah.
And Chelsea came down, right, from Champions League, if I recall.
Yeah, I believe so.
Right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't as if they weren't better in terms of their performances in the league than us, and they were. So, I'm disappointed in how things are, but I shouldn't be surprised. That's the thing. People are supposedly surprised about where we stand, and it's like you can't. Like, look at what's going on around. It's not a one person fix. Arteta's not going to fix it. And you bring in a top manager and you give him the same players, he's not going to be able to compete the way you want. Yeah, he might overachieve, but he's not going to compete the way you want.
You need the tools, right? That's what we've been missing. I'll say we've been missing We've been missing the major piece of the puzzle has been missing for many years, and that's a proper striker. They brought in Kai Havertz, who isn't really a striker. They brought him in, and we haven't had, and they brought in Gabriel Jesus from Manchester City, who, you can play him in that role, but he's not really a striker. That's the thing, right? We haven't had a proper striker for years now, and that is the missing piece of the puzzle. That is what we see is lacking all the time, and you're right, because Saka gets all that extra attention because, the other players in the front line aren't as important, so they don't give them the same attention. If you've got a front line of Rafinha, Lewandowski, and Yamal. You know, you can't just focus on any one of those three guys, right? So those things matter, of course they do. So that's why I say if we finally, because now we brought Butter in, who's going to do the job. Hopefully, looks like he's a real serious guy. If he actually brings in a Gyökeres now or Sesko, whoever comes in, a proper striker, I think that's the last missing piece, right? And then we'll see if Arteta can do something with that. I think you've got to give the tools to the guy to be able to do it.
There was an hour-long discussion, I think I'll listen to this week, between Harry Semio and Sophie from, I can't remember where she's at, but she was with Kevin Campbell.
Library Squad, yeah.
Yeah, and they were talking about Arteta in, Arteta out, but like not in a more constructive adult type of conversation that you actually might enjoy, where it's not just yelling no trophies for 5 years. Which again, so this is the context here. I've only really been following this club super hard since like 2018. So of course my judgment and my analysis is going to be tinted by that. So I remember what it was when I started following this club to what it is now. So that's why I don't want to move away, because you're not guaranteed to bring a new manager in and just continue where you were going. You're not guaranteed that. But Arsenal from their last league title have only won like 3 or 4 FA Cups, and one of those Arteta won. So where's this entitlement to win the league?
It's the expectation, right? That's the thing for me.
It's not reality.
It's the 13 Premier, first
I get that, but I understand that. But
that's where the history. We talk about heritage all the time. That's what they talk about, right?
Correct.
So if they talk about heritage, it's not about what you just won the last 5 years. It's what you've won ever, right?
My point being, outside of the last 2 to 3 years, the Arsenal squad that Arteta had are nowhere near winning a league.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, when he took over, it's not competitive.
Yeah, to sit there and expect it to be fingers snapped in 2 seasons, I think it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, for me, that's why we needed to overachieve with what we had, and we can't do that with a manager who can't do that because he doesn't even know what that is. He can't. He's never done it enough. He's never overachieved with a team because he's never actually managed.
Look at Manchester United. Manchester United are a prime example, right? They have rebuilt how many times now since Sir Alex Ferguson left? Yeah. They've gone through how many managers, how many rebuilds? They're still not able to compete. So these things are difficult. That's the thing, right? You can't. Not everybody, can just do these things overnight, right? Then Manchester City just went out and bought everyone. Originally, it was Chelsea with Abramovich. They just went out and bought everyone. They brought in Mourinho, right? And then with Manchester City, they just went out and bought everyone. They brought in Pep Guardiola, right? So they just basically, cheated. Basically, we know that now. That's why they're going up against 130 charges, which we'll hopefully get to see the end of very soon. Right, so these things matter, right? There's a context to these things, right? So for Arteta, who came in who's not experienced, I know we all didn't like that, but now he's getting experience, but he hasn't had all the pieces of the puzzle. So now we'll see finally, hopefully he gets the last pieces of the puzzle into the squad, and hopefully we can see he'll win something next season. And like I said before, I've said this before on several shows, if he gets these pieces now in the summer, and he doesn't win anything next season, then for me that's not good enough, because then for me he's had what he needs.
Yep. And I still think there's a possibility that Alberta coming in is going to give Arteta another year as well, depending on what they are allowed to do during the summer. I mean, there's horrific things them saying about potentially Saliba or Gabriel getting sold, which is a step backwards to me. But again, that tells you the club's not serious at that point too, unless they're forecasting Saliba's not going to sign a new deal. And no matter what you do, you can't let them walk for free, right? There's that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But again, people in our fan base will say, well, Saliba didn't want to play for Arteta. That's what it was. And it's like, I think if Real Madrid called a lot of players in this league, I think they would go a run in.
Real Madrid are the one, probably them and Barcelona.
Yeah.
They're probably the 2 teams in the world that no matter, any player in the world is gonna automatically want to play for them because they're that big, right? That is just the way it is, unfortunately. No one's going to compete with the reputation and the size of Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Not. I mean, there's not many clubs that can at all, really. I mean, and that's the thing too. On top of that, like,
yeah,
I mean, like we talked about the 2 Premier League examples you used. I think United and Arsenal. I mean, when I think about what I've learned about the previous history, Chelsea, like you said, Russian, Roman Abramovich, bad guy, kind of a thug, got his money in questionable ways, shall we say. And then Man City, doing what they were doing with the 130 charges. So the two things that people sit there and want to emulate basically go against the core principles of Arsenal, right? If you think about it, everything that this club stands for and everything they promote, you can't operate in a manner like Chelsea and Man City did.
Yeah, and I think that the difference also when you bring up a Real Madrid and a Barcelona and even a Bayern Munich is they have a monopoly on their leagues.
Yeah.
There are too many good teams in English football for you to go, I'm going to go to the top team in England because they're all, outside of what Man City's done over the last 10 years. In reality, everybody's had an opportunity to win. Right, and everybody has won. Right, Liverpool's have won, Chelsea's have won. Manchester United's have won. But you go to like, and plus, guess what? You don't have to leave your country of origin. Right, it's really hard to pull players out of Italy. Hard to sometimes pull players out of Spain, Germany. Right, it's really hard to pull them out. Even they might be low. Like Wirtz is, they're saying, he might go to Manchester City, but it's so easy for him just to go to Bayern Munich. Right, and then be able to dominate there. City might pay more money.
You have an easy life. In Germany, you have an easy life in Bayern Munich, right? Because they're winning basically everything.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of money. They pay well. So, if you're a German talent or you're from Central Europe, and Bayern Munich wants you, it's great. It's a great life, And it's interesting you mentioned the differences there because it's true. There is a difference between the way the Premier League is, in terms of competitiveness versus La Liga and, for example, Bundesliga. Because, in Germany, I know Leverkusen have been quite close the last couple of seasons. Leverkusen won it last season. This season, they're quite close. Bayern Munich ended up winning. But, you look at the teams that are going to win the Bundesliga, it's always Bayern Munich. It's always them. They are the heavy favourites. And the last 10, 15 years, it's nearly always them. They are going to win the league. And also normally the German Cup as well. That's just the way it is. And you look at La Liga, with very few exceptions, the last 10, 15 years, it's either Real Madrid or it's Barcelona. It's those two guys fighting out, sometimes a little bit of an outside, Atletico Madrid or, Atletico Madrid. Sometimes they'll come into the mix, but it's Barcelona, it's Real Madrid, right? That's the way it is. It's far less competitive. But now you look at the Premier League now for next season, right? We're looking at, for example, next season. You there's several teams that could win the league next season, right? There's Liverpool, who are the favourites probably because they won it this year.
Yeah.
You look at us now; we're pretty close. If we buy, we're going to be in the mix. Newcastle, if they add players, they've had a very good season. Now, end of the season, they could potentially be a title contender. You've got Manchester City. If they pull back now, I know they've had a poor season this season, but they won everything the last few seasons. Manchester City are going to be buying players and strengthening their squad again. So that's 4 teams there that you probably look at going to be competitive. And then outside that, you're probably looking at maybe a Chelsea or, but there's 4 teams there you think maybe could have a chance of winning the Premier League. It's not like that in the other top leagues, right?
Yeah. I'm going to say hello to people in the comment. I'll make a comment as well. BPK Sports is in the house. Thanks for joining us. And AFC always. If the second part of this statement holds true, then Arteta is not the man to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean,
we're missing those two type of players.
Well, the thing AFC always is obviously Arteta out, and of course that's his opinion. That's fine, But I agree. I agree with I'm saying I want Arteta to be given that chance with the final pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
If Berta can deliver that to him, if we get a top. Like Gyökeres as a striker, and hopefully we improve the left wing with maybe a Rodrigo, or maybe we go with a Lookman or a Williams, or someone like that ilk. Then I'm going to say, and we managed to basically keep all our other players.
Yep.
Basically, I'm going to say next season, yes, with that squad, with that team, all the pieces there, you need to be winning something. So I will go in on Arteta next season if we don't win with all those players in place.
Yeah, and for me, the failures in the last 4 years have all come from the lack in quality in the offense. All of it, all 4 of them. You put a more a better striker in there. You put in a more clinical team, a more creative. I know we create a lot of chances, but it sounds like we need to create even more because we're not even when we get those chances, we still need more, and maybe we need even easier chances than we've been getting, right? And maybe a better creative player will give us easier chances. So all of that plays into why we've struggled because we are as poor as we've been this year. We're so many points away, so easy. We could have had enough points to be where we want to be if we could make those timely passes, make those timely strikes in games where you draw 14 games, and then most of them, over half of them, are from leading position. You're putting yourself in a position to win, but you don't have the answers, and we haven't had the answers, or we haven't tried to use them. I still feel like I would like to have seen us utilize and Weary a little bit more to see if he would have been able to give us a chance. And when I don't think Arteta gave us a chance without using him, who's one of our better attackers, I believe. Of the few that we have, outside of Saka, even Kai, Trossard coming off the bench, and Moreno has surprised us this year. But I think naturally, as an attacker, I think where he would have helped us, and we didn't try that. So that's my disappointment, is that we didn't even give ourselves a chance.
Well, you know what, Gary, it's very interesting the point you'll be making there. I mean, this is what I've been saying in recent streams as well, is that I think it's pretty clear that it's our lack of clinical ability up front that's keeping us from winning these major these games and actually taking that final step, because we create the chances, but we're not good enough at finishing them. And that is that difference at the top level, like I've said before. When you're at the pinnacle of football and you're in the semi-finals of the Champions League, or you're in the final of the Champions League, you're in the semi-final of the World Cup, you're in the final of the World Cup, the difference between the teams that lose and the teams that win is the teams that are clinical, the ones who have the quality to score on the chances they get. Because you look at the XG, right? I know XG can be a bit controversial, but what XG can tell you, because there's many, many different metrics that go into making that, right? But what XG can tell you is basically how, much you created in terms of scoring chances. Now, with us versus PSG, over those 2 legs, we created over 5 goals collectively in XG. It was 5 point something. So if we would have taken the chances basically on what was created, in terms of good chances, proper chances created, we should have scored 5 goals over those 2 legs. We should have scored 3. We was 3 point something for the second leg in Paris. Mm-hmm. So we should have scored 3 goals that game and gone through, because our XG was better than Paris Saint-Germain's XG, right? It showed our lack of quality up front. So if you add a Gyökeres, a Sesko, someone like that, I think all of a sudden you're scoring more of those goals you're creating. That's what I think happens.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, and also from what I can tell, and I see it all the time in the better players, your XG is basically, if that's your low bar. If you're a good player in your position, you're usually over your XG, right? I mean, I was looking at, they were comparing Martinelli to, I think is it Rodrigo, and both of the XGs are just below what they actually did. So yes, so saying our XG was 5 meant there were 6 to 7 goals in us on a good day. If we were clinical, because those Rice shots, right? Those aren't giving us good. They're not giving us good XG, right? So those are just the bonus ones that you get that push you over.
Look at the game in Paris. Look at the game in Paris, right? Look at those 2 saves Donnarumma made, right? He made 2 world-class saves, incredible saves, right? So that's, you've got a world-class goalkeeper who's having a world-class game, right? And we play that game again with another goalkeeper or another day, maybe those 2 goals are going in. And then you got Saka, who that cross came in and he's basically had an open goal and he just didn't hit it right. So it went over to the right, if it was basically an open goal, if he just hits that ball into the net, that's another goal. So that's the 3 goals clearly I saw in my head that we, should have been getting.
And then
same thing. That's the difference, right? That's the difference.
And in the Real Madrid, we could have been 5 up. If if their goalkeeper didn't make those saves, we're 5 up, and it's even more laughable than it was. And as Chris Nick says here, in the Premier League, at least you can lose to anyone on the day, and the teams towards the bottom will surprise you if you don't come and bring it. Right? Arsenal doesn't bring it. Arsenal doesn't bring it every day, and guess what? They get punished for it.
That's the thing. You've got to play your full team now. You can't go to a Ipswich or a West Ham or a Crystal Palace or a Leicester. You can't go to those teams and play with a weakened team, rest players. Even though you should be, of course, for squad freshness and all that. But I'm just saying, if you go to one of those teams and you play like half of your second team, your backup players, you're probably going to lose that game, because that's how competitive it's become now. Going back 30 years, going back into the 90s, you could go to those bottom half teams and play a weakened team, and you'll probably still be winning the game, right? So it's different now.
Yep. No. You are correct there. Yeah, and the money is to some degree getting spread around now. So you're creating a more partisan, it's a more equal level field to some degree. There's always going to be heritage that makes it easier for the bigger teams, and the money's spent and all of that. The PSR, like if money was like, always go back to what they do in the States. Everybody has a limit of what they can spend. There might be penalties if you go over it, but in reality, you all start from the same point, and most teams try to keep in that area. And so it does at that point then to come down to sometimes coaching. Sometimes the coaching outweighs it as well. So like you put a better coach in a situation where everybody has the same monies to spend on players, your better coaches will pan out and do the better and get the best out of the players. There are examples
of coaching works, right? There are examples of coach assembling the right team, not necessarily all the best players, but assembling the right team and having the right, manager, a head coach that puts that together in the right way. These things have happened. They don't happen often. Mm-hmm. They're quite rare, but these things happen. Like with Ranieri and Leicester in 2016, right? That team, they had Jamie Vardy up top, was exceptional, but the rest of the players, they had a couple of good players in there, but that team, that was more a collective, right? They didn't have many like star players. They were just a really good collective. They were a good unit, and Ranieri got the best out of that unit. He was really good tactically, had them motivated, and he just made the best out of that squad, and they surprised everyone. Yes, the context is that we fell off after Christmas. Manchester City obviously had a poor season, so they took the advantage of the other top teams not doing well. But the way Ranieri coached that team was exceptional. It was one of the real, surprises, I think, in modern football.
And the fact that they had a Conte sitting there who eventually goes on to win a World Cup, and one of their better players in that World Cup, says like they didn't have like it wasn't only that they had the good management, but they actually had some good quality players on there. Anybody would have taken Vardy back in those days, right? Lay the ball off for him, and he's off to the running. And you're laughing, right? I mean, that was.
He also had Danny Drinkwater next to him. He had Conte, who was really good, and then you had Danny Drinkwater, who played exceptional that season, was very good in central midfield. With Conte and Drinkwater, he got a good reputation of that season. He ends up going to Chelsea, and no one ever saw him again because that was it. It was just he worked in that system, right? Yeah. With Ranieri, he worked in that system, and this shows you how players are different in different systems, right? That's the thing. So the system does matter as well when it comes to these players.
Yeah. When you get to this level, everybody has a strong a pro and a con to their game. And if you ask them to do a lot of the cons, you see it, and then you're like, well, there you go. You set them up to fail. Guess what? They failed. All right. I mean, as Chris Nick says here, Arsenal take a punt on Darwin Núñez. I mean, he would be. He's right now. He's like that Sterling type play. You have to give him lots of opportunities, and maybe he'll score some of them. Right. But he's always there. Right. Sterling now is usually like for us, he's there, but he's not scoring at all. Even when he's at Manchester City, he was getting those opportunities, but he still was making, you're like, how in the world did you miss that? Right.
You know what? It's so fascinating with these strikers, right? Because I mean, Nunes was crushing it in Portugal, right? I mean, he was absolutely incredible in Portugal, broke all the records and everything. And then everyone wanted him. He was this big, player everyone wanted. And Manchester City, was it City? I'm thinking of Alvarez, maybe City, but I think it was a Liverpool. Anyway, Liverpool bring him in, and he's just not scoring on the chances he used to be scoring in. And this is the thing, right? Okay, he was getting more opportunities in Portugal because it's an easier league. The defenses aren't as good, so he was getting more opportunities to score. But when he was getting those opportunities, he was scoring them. Whereas when he gets the opportunities now, he's not scoring them, which is so fascinating because you're still getting that opportunity, not as often, not as much, but you're still getting the opportunity and he's still missing. Another example is Timo Werner. Timo Werner was absolutely crushing it in the Bundesliga with Werder Bremen. And then he comes to Chelsea and he's like, I forgot where the goal is. It's like he's still getting chances to score and he just misses everything. It's fascinating how that, strikers can really change like that from going from one league to the next.
I feel that is the Premier League at its best and worst, depending on what you think. You're not gonna get easy. You have to work. You have to work. There's a lot more to it than just striking the ball in front of the goal. You got to get to that point, and everything getting from wherever the ball started to where you are in a position to score, there's a lot of work involved. You're battling people are knocking you over, all that type of stuff, right? You got to hold up strong, right? By the time you get to that goal, you've done. This is like you have to be able to cross the line. You need to conserve a little bit more energy, so when you get there, only thing left is to put this ball between those posts. That's it. But I think a lot of players are just dead tired in that sequence of play, that when they get there, their technical abilities just disappear, and that's what we see when we see all these misses.
It's an interesting point you make there, Gary. I think you're right. I think when they actually do get the chances, it's they're probably more tired. They're probably it's probably more difficult to actually finish it than in another league, maybe. I think that's a good point you make there, but it's still fascinating, when they're getting those really good chances, all of a sudden in the Premier League, they just don't know how to find the goal, right? It's just, I just find that really fascinating. But you made a good point there, Gary. It is an interesting point.
But you brought up a good point also, Sam, about Danny Drinkwater. Moved to a different club, system. What kind of system was Nunes playing in Portugal versus what he's expected to do at Liverpool? I think Chris Nix talked about Liverpool play better with a false nine striker. Well, Arsenal basically play that right now. So you're going to throw Nunez in there. He's just going to, what he can't do for Liverpool, he's going to magically do for Arsenal.
That's true. It's a similar type of position. Yeah.
Well, you need a better false nine. He isn't even. I don't know what he is. I rather push him out wide than try to put him in that false nine position.
Here's the reality, though. Well, no, I get that. Here's the reality when we're talking about these strikers and stuff like this. You also think about the system that Arsenal set up. So your left wing and right wing are expected to come back and play in defense. That's just an expectation. It's kind of why Pepe didn't work out, because Pepe didn't want to do it. So that's why you're gone. Yes, you can score, but great. You need to be able to defend. So it's like, would York has struggled to do the same thing? That's the question. I don't know. Would Sesko struggle to do? I don't know that. So a guy I would probably want to go after is a Julian Alvarez, but I don't think it's going to happen.
That's $100 million.
Okay, but.
Yeah, we're still going to pay something similar.
Yeah, you're going to pay money.
That's $100 million there.
Gyökeres is going to be costing us 75.
Yeah, but Alvarez has already played in this league once, and I thought he was pretty decent when he was here.
Yeah, but we didn't want to pay the $80 million for him. More. We didn't want to pay the $80 million for him when he was here, right? Because that's what it would have cost us, possibly, maybe even more, because it was in the same league. But it was 80 when he left.
Here's my caveat: you got Berta, who's with Atletico Madrid, right? So, is it potential that a deal could be made? You're still going to pay 100, but it's hey, Alvarez, you can come back in here and beat the club that didn't want you anymore. I mean, my argument though is also saying to back up point is like Berta could be like, Alvarez, City didn't want you. They didn't think you were good enough for this league, but Arsenal wants you, and you can prove that you're better, and you can basically stick it in Man City's face. You could sell the job to him if you needed to.
I think you make a good point there. I think you're looking at players more in terms of their how they play in each position.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the way we use our number 9. We use him more as like a false 9. not an out-and-out striker, traditional striker. So, I think you make a good point where Alvarez might suit that role better for us than some of these other players. I think that's a very good point. And Berta is apparently a very good negotiator. I mean, this is an amazing point with Berta I like to bring up. And I read it's not my original point. I read it on. I think I read it on Twitter. Someone made it, and I was like, wow, it makes him look really good because Berta, he sold Griezmann. He sold Griezmann for 100 million, and he bought him back for 5. He sold Griezmann to PSG for 100 million euros. That's what that deal cost. And then when he didn't do very well at PSG and he was getting right to this last year of his contract, and they were like, yeah, we probably don't want him. He negotiated to bring him back to Atletico Madrid for 5 million euros. Now, that's a guy who can negotiate, right? That's someone you want negotiating your transfer deals. Yeah. So, No, but back to the Alvarez point. It's a very good point Spencer made because he's thinking more how the player would suit into our team, which is an interesting point. But I think all the Arsenal fans, we want someone who's a big, major goal-scoring striker. Because the thing is about positional play, the top elite strikers, they get into scoring positions. And that's where we see we're lacking this season. Like we see time and time again, balls are played in the box. We get down to where the byline is. We're playing the ball across or just slightly out diagonally past the 6-yard box. And there's no one there. There's not someone there in that position. Now, a top-level striker, a Gyökeres, a Sesko, someone like that, Osimhen, they are going to be in those positions because that's the way they think positionally. I think that's where the difference is. They'll be in those positions to score more of those goals. That's my point.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one because too many times if we've watched Moreno playing midfield be in a position where you're like, where is Kai Havertz? Why isn't Kai Havertz there making a header, putting a play on? Because he's playing. He starts off in that position, so he's starting off as a center forward, but yet he doesn't get there before Moreno, who's playing.
Kai Havertz used to make runs that a lot of people on his team weren't making runs.
They're not passing. You're right, and that's why we need more creative. Yeah. Like we talk about all this creative football, but as you said, we don't even make that pass because we're not even thinking about making that pass.
Well, that's the thing. When Havertz came in and played that 9 role, he was making those runs that other players weren't making, that Jesus wasn't making, that Nketiah wouldn't make, right? Yeah. I mean, that was. I mean, he wasn't finishing those chances, but he was putting himself in those opportunities. So there is a possibility to get a Gyökeres, get a Sesko, and they can do that. But again, like I think. My argument for Gyökeres is he's 27. He's probably, his football intelligence is higher than Sesko's, where Sesko is still probably raw talent. Whereas, you're getting this 22, 23-year-old striker who may not understand all those runs completely. Yeah, he can do the cute tricks with his foot and he can hit the ball from 30 yards out or whatever. But it's also, I mean, look at, and I brought this up on Monday, Sam, that how many times were in the PSG game was Saka or Martinelli isolated on the wings and there was 4 blue shirts right next to them, not a red shirt in sight. Nobody was there saying, hey, I need to split this defender. Maybe Moreno, and it's not expectation of Moreno. We obviously did all this stuff with not having a striker, but no one was making those runs to support those wingers, whether it's the fullbacks or whatever. Like that's what's missing, I think, offensively on this team.
And I think to back up what you're saying there, Spencer, you make a very good point with that, and also bringing in back Havertz into that is because you see the way we play offensively without Havertz now when he's gone. It's not as good. We don't do as well because it means something. The way he works off the ball and makes those runs and supports in attack with what he does, it means a lot in terms of how we play and get into our attacking positions to score. You can see that when he's not playing now, when Havertz is out injured, we are nowhere near as good attacking as we are with him. So, Havertz in there does make a difference, I think.
And it does mean that we can still bring in someone better than Havertz and get better results.
Of course, because as you just said, Spencer, Spencer, just to finish my point, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to finish what you were saying earlier, because he was getting himself into those great positions, and he has been getting himself into those great positions, and then missing a lot of good chances. I think the difference is if you get a Gyökeres in there, or maybe even a Sesko, they get into those positions and score. That's what I hope we can see, right?
Yeah. Well, think about it from Haaland's perspective, right? He came to the league, and then he had that massive year, and then you could argue this year's been a little bit less. Could you say maybe teams in the league have figured out how to play him a little bit better, possibly? But there's that thing, like that's a guy that puts finishes away, right? That and they're not. That's why, like, man, if you're gonna pay anywhere from 70 to 100 for this guy, like you just are. Like you could find someone for 60. I mean, the Watkins deal was interesting. I liked that opportunity because he's already done it in the league and he would fall right in. But we also got to look at that left wing position. So do you bring a Gyökeres in, or do you say, hey, you mentioned Lookman? Like, we got to think about competition for Martinelli, because I was thinking about this comment that was said earlier by Chris Nix about, back in the day, the top four could go there and play a weaker squad. Well, we sit here and say, well, Martinelli's not good enough. But, yeah, we still need a Martinelli because you still need to have him in certain games. So even though we don't rate some of these players to, like, take us to that next level, we still need them as positions 12 through position 17, because that's where – we also need to look at one position, obviously the striker position, but of our 11, and maybe even the left wing position if you want to bring that up there. So we're looking at potentially 2 starters. If you can bring Partey back and convince him to come back for a couple more seasons, I think it's worth it. And then you start looking here further back and saying, okay, where am I put? And Weary, you're a value added. Sterling, go back to Chelsea. We don't care about you anymore. You start going down that list. Fabio Vieira is coming back. He's a little bit older. Has he matured? Like, those are questions that the preseason tour is going to answer, whether he has a future here. Obviously, you've got to think about Sambi Lokonga. You're probably moving on from him, right? So there's some man management that Burks is going to have to do to figure out, you've got your depth chart. Going football here, but I like
the depth chart.
Let me just say something, because I would like to get in here and talk, because you guys are going back and forth like I don't.
Sorry, Gary.
I wanted to have a say, but first I want to say hi to Godfrey. Welcome thanks for joining us. No, what I was going to say is this is why I think a lot of us we keep bringing in players that are questionable. All right, like we're like, if we bring Sesko in, does he actually defeat Kai Havertz? Some of us think Arteta will still be like, I think I still need to wait and see how Sesko does. You bring in a Gyökeres, you bring in a Ollie Watkins, you bring in an Isak, you bring in an Osimhen. There's no question there whether or not, does Kai Havertz really, are we pushing players down as opposed to just, creating a good balance? Because for me, I feel like we need to have those answers that are yes. Yes. Oh, look at this guy. He must be feeling. He must be. I see you both of you guys like smirking at a comment. I'm like, who said it? Okay,
it's true though, because sometimes on Mondays I'll bring up a point, and it's one of those if and points, and Gary's just like, Spencer, no, you're wrong.
Well, you're directing your questions to Sam, so I'm like, I'm feeling left out on my own.
Sorry, Gary.
So no, you could do that. I just wanted to join in on the fun. Can I not join in on the fun, please?
This is your playground, technically.
No, I enjoy it. But like I said, I feel like we need to bring in those yes answers to the question, right? And the only way that happens is if they push down players. Like, yes, Martinelli come off the bench work for us, but I believe we need a starter, right? At that wing, that left wing, we need a starter at that striker. Sounds like Arteta wants a striker in that 6. All right, that he wants to bring in. I don't know Zubimendi is better than Partey when he's healthy.
Probably not.
Right. So for me, I don't know. Like getting Zubimendi as like competition for Partey, good. That leaves Partey doesn't ever have to play right back ever. Right. Like there should be never a case ever again that we bring him and put him in a right back. Like you need to bring in another player if that's the case, because you want to solidify that midfield with strong Zubimendi and a Partey. We're laughing, right? We're laughing. We're happy. We should be happy in that we're not going to drop off because Partey's out of the game, or Zubimendi is out of the game, and we don't have another strong backup next to them or behind them. So
Jorginho's leaving.
Yeah, and we didn't use Jorginho for what reason? I'm not even sure. Right? Nobody knows why he just didn't get to play him for the first 2-3 months of the season. We're like, why are we resting him? You brought him here, And so I kind of, and that's on Arteta itself, right? So.
It'd be very interesting to see with Zubimendi coming in now how he uses him, because Zubimendi is like he's got a lot of reputation. He's got a good reputation. He's quite a big player. I would agree he's probably not as good as Partey. I think Partey's slightly ahead of him. But Zubimendi is the kind of player who's not really like a squad player, if you know what I'm getting at. So I'd be very interested to see if he's actually going to play second string to Partey and he's going to be sitting on the bench a lot, or whether because Rice now he's that number 8 for me. You can't leave Rice out of the side, the starting lineup. Rice is the number 8. So the only other option then for Zubimendi is the 6 role. And that for me, that's Partey. So if Partey's staying, which it looks like he is, then, where does Zubimendi fit into this? Fantastic if he's just a squad player. Fantastic. But I'm just thinking, is Zubimendi going to like being a squad? That's the thing I'm trying to figure out is he's going to be on the bench a lot. Is he going to like that? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
He's going to start a lot too, I think, Sam, because this is how you're going to think about it. You're going to think about Partey. You're 32. So do I expect you to do a 38?
Yeah, it's true. He might be injured a lot.
So when I'm looking at Partey, and this is what Gary wants, and this is what I think any of us really want, if we're honest. 60 minutes out of Partey, 30 minutes out of Zubimendi. You start the next game, 60 minutes, Partey 30 minutes, and all of a sudden it's just
that'd be amazing if they could rotate like that we saw. This is what made Manchester City so good, right? With Pep Guardiola and that squad. Their squad was so good they could play 6-7 different players every game, backwards and forwards, like 6-7. They had like 4-5 like starters every game, but then the rest of like the 5-6 others, they were every game they were backwards and forwards, right? Because they were that good. If we could do that with a Zubimendi and Partey and just rotate them backwards and forwards, I agree, Spencer. That would be fantastic.
And then you got to think about it from this perspective too. Like Kivior could come in and play for Gabriel. We trust him, and I think you have to trust him enough. You also have to look at.
I want to keep Kivior. Kivior's been fantastic for us.
Yeah. I mean, again, but that's just the other problem with the fan base too. I feel like our fan base with Kivior, they didn't want to give him a shot because of, I guess something that happened in his first.
That's Arteta though.
But our
the man is a center back. You play him out of position. I've said this earlier today. You play a player out of position. They play bad, and all we're doing is seeing them in a bad situation. Going, why does he look so poor? Then you see him in his preferred position, and then we're like, what the hell? Why were we not using him in his preferred position from the get-go? Why weren't we rotating our center backs like we've been asking for? Right? We've asked for all these things. We said, can our 2 center backs go a whole season again without injury concerns? Right? And we were told, no, you can't. You need to go and utilize your squad, right? And that's the thing that Arteta hasn't figured out. That he got lucky in those runs where he's got his 2 center backs going over 3,000 minutes in a season, right? We got lucky there, right? And then we brought in Kyrgios and we still didn't want to use him until once again he's injured. Same thing in Weary, right? We bring in a player who's supposed to be skilled with the ball at his feet and get the ball out really quickly to put a shot in, right? We only use him when Saka finally gets injured. Erdogan wasn't the trigger. It was when Saka got injured. Now we're going to use him. And it's like, well, I thought he should have got more opportunities to play when Erdogan was out, because that legitimately is where he may be playing for us in the future, or a future team if they give him a chance. Because I don't know about you guys. I felt like he's not a right wing for us. I think he's more going to be in that position.
When it comes to Kivior, what I think happened with Kivior was when he got those few opportunities. You're right. He was played out of position as like left back and stuff, right? Which I think he did that to sort of like plug the holes we had at the time, because we didn't have Calafiori. Timber was out.
Calafiori's a centre back too, though.
I'm talking about Kivior now. I'm talking about what happened to Kivior. That's what I'm talking about. So we had lack of options due to several injuries, multiple injuries on the left back. So he would bring in Kivior at left back, which is not really his preferred role. So that didn't really help Kivior. But then what I was going to say was, then when we saw him play centre back a couple of times when he came in, he didn't really do very well. And I think that might have sort of like made Arteta think, okay, I'm not really going to trust this guy to rotate. I'm not going to give Gabriel more of a rest because I don't really trust the guy. I think maybe that was in his thinking. And then later on, when Gabriel got injured, that's when he had to use Kivior basically because Calafiori was out again. So he had to bring Kivior in, and you got to hand it to Kivior. He's done really well. I think he's been fantastic the last few weeks for us. So yeah, you're right. You're right with Kivior. He maybe should have been brought in earlier. I agree, but I just think Arteta didn't really like what he saw with him. Yeah. But with Nwaneri, because you brought up Nwaneri as well, I think Nwaneri is being managed with his minutes. That's what I think is happening with him. They're worried about overplaying him too early. That's what I think they're worried about. Yeah.
No, I get that. Now, the reason why I bring up that as well is because Tomiyasu, if you recall, 2-3 seasons ago, he came in against City and had a poor game.
Yeah.
The man hadn't played for about 4 or 5 weeks going into that game. But because of injuries, and not because, if he was rotating in and getting minutes, he would have been a little bit fresher. He makes that really poor pass, and City is off to the races, and we have a really bad day. And that's because I've been calling for rotation as much as I can remember. And that's the reason why, is because you keep these players fresh, right? Tomiyasu shouldn't be sitting on our bench for a month with barely any minutes, right? Not the way we've seen him play when he's healthy, right? And I'll say healthy because that seems to be our Achilles heel. When healthy, we got a good squad. When healthy, we're going to win more games, right? So, But the only way you keep some players healthy sometimes is you play them. They can't just sit idle. You get rust, you get dust, and then you try to run again, and then you break something, right? So I kind of felt I'll agree with
Tomiyasu.
Yeah.
I agree with Tomiyasu because I feel it when at the start when he first came in, he wasn't used as much as he should have been used. I feel he was left out a lot. And then we came in that game against Manchester City, had a terrible game, and I think that knocked his confidence as well. But yeah, I do agree. I think I don't think Arteta used him as much as he should have. And then he got his injury now, and he's God knows when he's coming back. He's got this special injury with his knee or something, and it looks like he's probably not even going to come back until like after we start this next season. So the Tomiyasu, I agree with you. That's not a good way he got handled at the beginning.
Yeah. No, and it's disappointing that Jesus and Tomiyasu are players that we could use. Not necessarily they don't have to be starters for us, but we could use, and they're tied to us until January most likely if we're going to let them go. And they're set in the high salaries on top of that, right? With Jesus, so it's like, and I think Arsenal doesn't like to waste their money, even though they waste their money in the first place.
You know what? I think. Sorry, Spencer. Sorry, Spencer. Keep your thought in your head. I know you're gonna. I just wanted to follow up very quickly with the salary stuff with Jesus and Tomiyasu. I don't think Tomiyasu's on a very high salary. That's okay. But Jesus is on a ridiculous salary. He's on like 300K a week, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous for him. I just wanted to finish off my point by saying I think that's another thing that shows Edu wasn't really good at his job. He didn't really know what he was doing, because if he's negotiated together with his team, he's negotiated a £300,000 a week contract for Jesus to bring him into Arsenal. That's not good. That is fucking terrible. So I think Edu, one of the reasons why we've seen him go now is because they're like, I don't really think this guy really knows what he's doing. Sorry, Spencer, go ahead.
No, you're right about that, because, I mean, Jesus is probably a 200K a week player, if you're honest. A little bit less max. If you and obviously at the time, I don't think we were in Champions League, so you kind of had to settle him. So you kind of overpaid just to get him to come in, but that's way too much overpayment. But here's the answer to the rotation question: clinicalness. You can't do all these rotating things if in the 60th minute you're 0-0 with Bournemouth. You just can't do it. Because, if you've scored early and you get yourself a striker and you can sit there and finish your chances and you're up 2-0, okay, Partey come on, Zubamendi come off. Because Jesus is probably going to have to be part of the plans, whether we like it or not. I've seen him be there about 260 is what I've seen a Sport Track say, which is still a lot of money for him. But I mean, you're gonna have to put teams away early, and we don't do that. So that hurts Arteta's ability to pull players, because what ends up happening is you create this imbalance. You take off your big attacking player to give him some minutes, and next thing you know, it's a 1-1 game, or even now you're losing 2-1.
So I hear what you're saying in some points, but in others I don't, because
But you can't just rotate
because if we're pulling off an attacking player and we're bringing on a fullback, then what you're saying is not true because he's not doing it. And that's where I understand where the minutes restriction on probably in Nweri is why he can't come in. He can only come in after the 85th minute in games, it seems. But if we don't have like for like, then I think we just leave it the way it is. But in some cases we do have something, and I think. Just after 60 minutes, if it's not working and you change it, the only way you can change it is either you change your formation to open things up a little bit, if that's what you need, or to lock things down, if that's what you need. We don't do either of that. We just play the exact same way, expect things to get better. That's what it seems like we do. And it's not gonna. For me, it doesn't work. You have to change things up with players, some fresh legs, and maybe somebody who's not it's not working today, right? Yes, they might be the starter tomorrow, but today it's not working. That's why you have a squad. You utilize your squad. We need a goal. We bring in a player that helps us get a goal.
So you're okay with if the substitute happens and it goes sideways? You're okay with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, I'm just curious.
Yeah, because you're already
that player on.
No, but you why have these squad players if you're never going to be able to use them? Because guess what? They might play bad. Well, they might play bad, but they also might play good. So
we know our fan base.
It's a 50. No, we're talking football here, right?
I know we are. I know we're talking adult conversation. 100% agree. But our fan base, if and where he comes on for Saka and we lose a game, people are going to be cussing Arteta for pulling Saka off.
Maybe you don't pull Saka. Maybe you pull somebody else.
But I agree. But what's the thing I agree with to an extent? You have to trust the squad players. So we're on the same page on this 100%.
Yeah.
From an adult conversation point.
I think pulling Saka for Nweri is like a bad decision.
You could still do it.
You could, but I don't think that's where our problem is that Saka is the problem, and that's why we.
You're worried about Saka's minutes. And listen, I think if anything's been learned by the club this year, injuries can derail everything.
Yeah.
So I think Bert's is going to come in and say, okay, who do we have on the squad? Who there's going to be a legit sit down with Arteta and probably Bert, and this maybe already happened. And he's going to say, here's your lone players. Who do you even value? And there's going to be a hard discussion, and they may do, because I think you have to do this. I like Tom's comment there. We were doing more than surface level conversations here, Tom, is what we're trying to say here. So you're going to have this conversation about.
I'm just sitting there he's yeah.
He's enjoying this. I know he is.
His nonsense doesn't come out as strong in words on a page. You know what I mean?
It just doesn't. I could just be calm right now if we were doing it. He would just be ignoring us.
There you go.
No, you got to have a conversation about who's your best 11 and who's going to be the backups for those.
Yeah.
And then who's the players you're going to bin off you don't care about anymore. So this is a big summer, not to beat the dead horse, but I think it's massive because at the end of the day, Bert is going to make sure he gives him what he needs to succeed. And if he doesn't succeed, I think the club's probably going to move on. I really believe that. Mm-hmm. So.
Big up, Tom.
He said his brain is fine. I don't know about that either.
Brain works.
I mean, the brain has been a problem for me since day one. Yeah, no, they haven't fixed that yet. So,
gents, I've enjoyed this conversation today, but I've got to go help the rescue out. The person that normally sits up's not going to be there today, and I normally do cleanups, so I've got to reverse roles today. So I've got to bid you guys adieu. And
you want to show off your shirt and stuff? Because people were mentioning that to start. Because why not?
It's just a duck meow.
There you go.
Hey, look now. Before everybody says she's got the same shirt too. So
you guys shop at the same place. Cool.
Yeah. So we're gonna go do try to sell off some kitties, and then that's really it.
Cool.
So,
cool. Hopefully,
great stuff, Spencer.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, gentlemen. I will see you guys next Saturday. Gary, I'll see you Monday, and Sam. I'll see you.
On that note, Monday's show will be actually postponed to Tuesday. I have a family thing I need to do on Monday evening, so okay. Yeah. So hopefully you're able to make that. But yeah, before I ended this show, I was going to let everybody know. We'll be doing it on Tuesday for those who can join us. Then
it's been a fun conversation today, though. I've enjoyed it because I know it's been a minute since we've all all three been together. Of course, Tom, get better. Thinking about him and just reach out to him, make sure he's doing all right. Don't just because you don't see him doesn't mean he doesn't exist. And that includes all the people in the chat that love Tom for who he is, and we appreciate your time. Get back to 100%. So,
True.
Gary, Sam, I will see you guys in text groups, and I'll see y'all around.
All right. See ya. Have a good day.
Everybody have a good weekend.
All right. We're at 75 minutes, so we might be leaving soon.
All right.
I think is it the FA Cup starts in a couple of minutes anyway. So
the FA Cup final between Crystal Palace and Manchester City.
Yes. Let me
see.
see.
Manchester City might get another trophy, even though they're fucking shit this season. It annoys the hell out of me. It annoys me.
But you know what? When you can do what they did in the January window, it makes it a lot easier to answer some questions about, well, do we have what we need, right? And they were able to go, nope. So we just went out and spent a lot of money. I mean, I almost feel like if we, maybe not Ollie Watkins, but if we were able to pick up that the KK guy from the Turkey guy, he's from Turkey, right? Carrick, the guy from PSG, the left wing.
Oh, he's from Georgia.
Georgia.
His name is extremely difficult to pronounce, but I think it's Kvaratskhelia. I think that's what it's called.
Skelia. Yeah, Skelia. So the K is a little bit silent there. Skelia. Yeah. But like for us, if we had that player on our team and we were able to utilize him the same way, because he was a nightmare for Timber for a while, right? Until Timber settled down. But I think that
he is amazing, absolutely amazing. My God, what a player! But there's no way we'd be able to get him. I mean, I don't think he wants to go from PSG. He's just got
no. I mean, they got him in January, so he was. I heard his name come up in that would be a good guy to bring in because our left wing is kind of weak, right? He would have fit in perfectly and could have, if he could start for them that quickly, Arteta could never keep him off the bench, keep him on the bench, right? That's kind of how I feel.
And we actually scouted Kvaratskhelia back a few years ago.
Yeah,
we actually scouted him before he went to Napoli.
And that means we don't trust our talent ID to some degree, right?
Because back then, I was reading about this. It was quite interesting. I was reading this thing about our scouting not long ago, and apparently with Kvaratskhelia, they was looking at him and they was looking at Pepe and they was looking at a few other players. I can't remember a few of the other players, but. Kvaratskhelia, when they scouted him, apparently they scouted him in 3 games. I can't remember the team he was playing for before he went to Napoli, but yeah. Anyway, they scouted him. I think it was 3 games they scouted him, and in all 3 games he didn't play well, and he looked weak on the ball. He was like pushed off the ball, so they were like, no, they don't really like him. I think they moved on to a couple of other players at the same time, so we went on. So we didn't go for him. But he's obviously developed hugely since then. He's become more strong, much better, and obviously he's become the player he is today. But interestingly enough, we actually scouted him, and we were interested in him back before he went to Napoli.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's maybe it's not talent ID, but it's the dedicate. It's especially when it happens time and time again that you look at a player and then eventually they pan out under the right coaching and management of their talents, right? And if Arsenal is looking at that as a whole, stepping back and looking at that, they're like, well, maybe that's when the Isak deal would have made sense. Because yes, he probably was a little bit still a little bit fresh in his immature in his talents, but there's something there to build on, right?
Yeah.
And you use it. So that's kind of what we kind of have to trust yourself a little bit. Like you and that's why when we bring in a player and we don't play them, I'm like, what's the point of that? You did a lot of research, supposedly scouting, to decide to bring a player in, and then you don't use them.
Well, the thing is, right? The way I believe it works is the way I think it works. Again, I'm not 100% sure. This is just the way I think it works. Is we identify a lot of players through the stats. We even have our own stats company called Stat DNA. It's our own Arsenal own one of these stats companies that does specifically player stats and all this in-depth statistical analysis. So I think it works is we have all these statistics and all these players, right, in-depth stuff. And then when we identify from that, we identify interesting players, and then they'll get scouted. We'll choose from the stats database type of thing who's doing well, and then we'll go and scout them for a while and actually look at them play over an extended period of time, right? I think that's the way it works. And now apparently with Kvaratskhelia, and the team was, there's no way I would have remembered this team, but he was at a team called FC Dynamo Batumi. That's a Georgian team, one of the better Georgian teams apparently in Georgia. He was at that team, FC Dynamo Batumi, before he went to Napoli. Napoli scooped him up. But we were scouting him at that time, and he wasn't playing well the games we actually saw him in. So that's the thing, because we talk about this a lot, right? Where stats will identify certain things. You can look at certain things through stats, but then you've got to go and watch the player and see how they actually play, right, over a period of time. And if they're not playing well, and you've got to choose, like if you've got a pool of players you're choosing between, you're obviously not going to choose the guy who's not playing well, right? I think that's just logical to me, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. That's true. Like I said, it's one of those things where that's when you go back and do revisionist history and go, what did we miss? Because we missed something, because it did turn out, 3 or 4 years later, that he is that good of a quality player. So sounds like the initial evaluation was right, but when do you pull that plug and actually bring the player in? Because you were always saying bring that player in before they get there, right?
Yeah.
But so if you don't keep ties on them, you'll never know when that time is. And then by the time you do, you're competing with a PSG who's going to offer him a lot more cash and a chance to win trophies every year, guaranteed. So, yeah. We'll see if PSG. You want PSG, the PSG winning, or are you okay with Inter going back and getting another one?
Well, the thing with PSG is that's been their number one goal for a long while now, is to win that trophy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I like the PSG team better than the Inter Milan team. I don't have any affinity with any of the clubs. I don't care much about PSG. I don't care much about Inter Milan. They don't really mean much to me, either team. But if I just look at each of the teams, I prefer the PSG team. I like them better, partly because of Kvaratskhelia and Dembele. Kvaratskhelia is I love watching him play. He's so exciting. So when I look at him, and I probably want it personally, from a neutral perspective, I want PSG to win that final.
Yeah. I just, when it was a chance for Arsenal to be the team to get there first, that's why I would have, I'm like, so now I guess I'm a little salty, right? Because I think if PSG wins, then that puts them may piss off a Manchester United fan who is looking at the counts on the Champions League titles as well. Personally, I want both teams to lose, of course, but somebody's going to have to win. So yeah, I hear you. I guess for me, I just want to see a good Champions League final, and not somebody just run away with it.
I think it should be quite good, because PSG and Inter Milan, they play quite direct football. I mean, especially Inter Milan, they play very direct football, so it could be quite interesting.
Yeah. And I'm looking. I think it will, be a contrast in styles to some degree, because we know what PSG can give, but they surprised us with their press, and we know Inter defensively is supposed to be really strong. But they may come out of there. they might release the reins, and then you got a totally different game than you expected, because they do have the talented players there. Yeah, Mr. Tom just wants Bodo Glimt to get the trophy.
Oh, you know what? It's so I wanted them to win so bad, especially at home, because they're playing on their artificial pitch and all of that. It's up in the Arctic Circle. Everything, I was just wanting them so bad to win that second leg at home and force Tottenham to at least an extra time, maybe penalties. Anything can happen on penalties. That would have been so good. But interestingly enough, I was watching Bodo Glimt play now in the league as well, and after that game, they're so good at the build-up play. Bodo Glimt, that is their strength. They're so good at building up play, but in the final third, they're not good enough in the final third, against teams like Tottenham, because Tottenham, you got to give it to them. They struggle a lot, but they've got their two central defenders are actually pretty good, especially Van de Ven. He's very good. So Bodo Glimt couldn't get anything past him. So yeah.
Yep. And I guess in the final, the playoffs here.
It's like bubonic plague or cholera. It's like, which one do you want? It's like, fucking hell, Jesus Christ. They're both shit, horrible clubs. Oh, God.
All right, so it sounds like you don't really too. It almost sounds like you don't care who.
You know what? You know what I will say? You know what I will say? Because I don't like either club, anything at all. But you know what I will say? Out of that, based from a neutral perspective, I hate Chris Wilder, Sheffield United. I hate. I think he's a horrible manager. Sunderland have an amazing fan base, even though there's a lot of scum there. A lot of they've done a lot of bad things as a club on the field that I'm talking about. But they've got an amazing fan base, an amazing support. So I suppose if I have to choose between the two, I'll probably choose Sunderland. I'd like to win.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, I don't know too much outside of what you said and what I've heard people talk about. So I just want to once again another good game there. Got a question for you. I don't even know where this is going. So, but Anthony joins us. Welcome to the show. We're almost at the end here, but you get a question in.
He's bringing us back into Slags in the Dark here. He's bringing us back to that. But,
any new brands? So you got any new brands?
I know he's got a new flavor coming out called bubblegum. I mean, it's one of his new favorite ribbed bubblegum is coming out soon. I think that's going to be his favorite.
Wow, that doesn't even.
He's going to enjoy that.
I should not have asked. All right, we'll move on. Should not have asked. Sunderland just got the derby, I think. So there you go. You've got Sheffield United, as I don't like them. So there you go. So Mr. Tom doesn't like him, but he's going that way.
That's Tom logic right there. That's Tom logic.
Like I said, he's feeling better. You can tell because the comments don't make any sense, and and they don't usually. So there you go.
It's good to see Tom in the chat. It's good to see him back involved, at least in the chat. It's great. Of course, we wish him all the best.
Definitely. Wishing for the speedy recovery and back to some normalcy, whatever that will be this time. We are at 87 minutes, so we probably will let you guys go so you can get ready for the FA Cup. I don't know if I'll be on with Ryan. I know he's probably doing it, but it's probably a good time to at least take a little bit of break before we figure out that. In that game, I guess I do want Crystal Palace to win. I just don't see how that's going to work unless what we've been seeing for this last month in terms of the way they've been playing actually comes out, and what we've been seeing from City doesn't. Like City seems like they've got a handle on these games these days. Crystal Palace has been surprising teams the way they've been playing. So, and they can get something off of City this year. You know
what? In terms of a final, right? First of all, in a final, anything can happen. That's the thing, right? Final, normally normal like league form stuff sort of goes out the window. Anything can happen in a one-game final. Manchester City, they're obviously the favourites, being the better squad and everything, and they've been a little bit better lately than where they were earlier this season. But Crystal Palace, they are good enough in attack. I think Palace struggle a little bit defensively, but I think in attack they do have some, good points in attack where with Eze, they can create some things in attack. They might surprise City today. I'd love it. I'd love City to lose. I want Crystal Palace to win the final today because I would love them to City to lose.
Yeah, definitely City losing would be really nice because that would mean of the big six, as we call it today, not everybody gets a trophy. It's right now it looks like everybody's getting trophies, right?
everyone's getting a trophy this year. You get one, and it's like an Oprah Winfrey show. You get one, and you get one, you get one. You get a car. You get a car. You get a car.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that plays out for us because we don't need any more banter. We got to, like I said, our plate's full. Our plate is full. So maybe that team will lose. That will help us out a little bit. Chelsea not winning would be the icing on the cake, but I can't. They would have to. I don't know. I don't know how they can lose that final. Yeah. Like you would have to go out. You would have to work really hard for them to lose that final. The way they've been running through that cup, and it looks like Red Bull is, I guess, any chance of them playing Europe is gone now. They're down 3-2. They were up 2-1 at one point, but now they're down 3-2 to Stuttgart. So, yeah. So Xavi Simons is a player, right, who many people have said they would like to see him in our midfield.
Yeah, he's been playing very well for RB Leipzig. Xavi Simons, he looks very good. He's a very good playmaker. But and he can come in off the left as well. That's the thing, right? He can play off the left, so he's maybe an option to look at on the left side as well, even though we seem to be looking at other players ahead of him. But I like Zoe Simmons. He's a good creative player.
Yeah, when we played, we did play them. No, we did play them when he was at PSV, right?
PSV, yeah.
PSV, right? We played him, and he looked really good. A young player. He's definitely matured since then. He's only gotten better, and I think people were looking at him then, going, bring him in early. Once again, as players that we pass, you bring him in early, maybe you move on from others. Got a question for me on honesty. How do you reckon that can beat up Sam Greenwood, accelerate an animal, a mouse? Maybe thoughts. What was he saying? Can you translate?
I think that this is Weir's scrumpy cider Bristol speak, which is difficult to interpret, but I'll try. I'll make my best attempt here. What I think he's saying is, who do you think can beat up Sam Greenwood? Like from a celebrity or an animal, maybe a mouse as an example of an animal that could beat me up. I think that's what he's trying to say. But as you can tell, he comes from Bristol. He doesn't have many brain cells. They're trying to work overtime now to write on his phone. And he's probably had a little bit too much scrumpy, and he's got those rib bubble gum condoms to look forward to later in the tent when he blows them up for extra pleasure. Yeah. So he's got all of that to look forward to.
All right, so I'm going to go. I think I have to look this up because I want to make sure I get the name right. But isn't it? Is it Arnold and the Chipmunks? Is that right? Is that right? Arnold the Chipmunk from the cartoon, or they even made it. I think Arnold the Chipmunk could probably do one.
I'd say what chipmunks could do damage. I mean, they get in there and bite you. I mean, Alvin, isn't it? Alvin and the Chipmunk.
Alvin, not Arnold. Alvin, that's right. Yeah. Alvin, that's right.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Mr. Tom knows his thing. So yeah. So Alvin and the Chipmunks would go at Sam and bring him down. I
could probably do some damage, that's for sure.
Russ is off to walk the dog, so there you go.
Going for his dog session.
Yeah. My dad is his Mr. Tom's best friend. I don't understand why. I'm your son. You know who Mr. Tom
is? His adopted son. It's your dad's new adopted son. Welcome, Tom, to the family. Welcome to the family, Tom.
Yeah, Alvin, Simon, Theodore.
Yeah, it was good. I watched it as a kid as well, actually.
And even I actually watched the new ones with like the newer ones where they actually look like chipmunks hanging out with humans and stuff. They've done some of that, and it is actually pretty. It's done pretty well. So yeah. But anyway, we're gonna head out of here. Sam, words for the people before we go.
Words for the people. Down with the people. Yeah. No, it's been a good discussion today. I think we've had a good time of it. It's been good. We, as everyone knows who watches the road trip every Saturday, we give you a nice mixture of all different things. We teach you history. We teach you other important things. We're a teaching channel here as well. You learn loads of interesting things. And we talk a bit of football as well. It's been good. Good fun as always. Great to see everyone in the chat. Great to see Tom in here. Hope Tom gets well soon. Everyone else, all the legends. And it's been good fun as always, Gary. Thanks for having me, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their weekends.
Yeah. Back to semblance of normalcy. Yes, for Mr. Tom. Yes. I think Mr. Tom enjoyed that movie, but no, it was a cool movie if you're into that stuff. The chipmunks always save the day. Sam would be a dungeon master from Dungeons and Dragons. So there you go. Could be a yeah. Everybody, thank you again for joining us. Spencer, thanks for joining us as well. Mr. Tom, it's good to see you in the chat. Everybody in the chat has joined us as well. It's good to see you. We'll do this again next week. This will be the last one for the Premier League season. The summer months, we'll see how we play that one out. If we do a show every day or every week or not, just because people will be traveling. Actually, Yeah, so yeah, no, I'll be traveling in June. So, but that's a ways away from here. So that's a couple weeks away from here. So, but yeah, we'll see how that plays out, and but we'll try to bring you some information back then. I think it's the women have the Euros this weekend. In this summer, I think is how that plays out. The men get a break for once, so that'll be good for them. But we'll be back last weekend of the season for Premier League on the Sunday. But we'll be talking to you on the Saturday in preparation for that. Hopefully, Arsenal has sewn up the top 2 or 3 spot. I think if they win, they sew up the second spot if they win. So they need to do something they haven't done in a very long time. I think is to outplay Newcastle. Well, I guess in the last 3 or 4 matches. So. Yeah,
we're playing them at home though, so I think at least we'll have a good chance at home.
Yeah. I thought we lost them at home that one year.
Yeah,
with the push in the back, right?
And we're normally better against them at home. We normally struggle at St James's Park, but we're normally better than them at home. And I know we lost to them in the League Cup semi-final, but well, at least we're at home. We've got a better chance at home anyway.
And it's the last one of the season. The fans will be up for it. Hopefully, the players will want to go out on a big note, right? I mean, if
last home game, like you say, home game, the fans are going to be up for it, and the players should be up for it as well, of course.
Yeah, Rice, I think should be back. Kai Havertz should give us a little bit of a lift. I don't know if we should be playing him. I mean, I don't think we should be playing him the same way. I don't think we should have been playing Saka, but Arteta does things backwards, anyways. Moreno is fine if we're healthy as much as we've been. Moreno should be good enough to play up top against them. I think he adds a little bit something different than Kai Havertz would coming off a hamstring injury. So
maybe give Havertz the last 15 minutes or something like that. Just bring him on and see what he can do.
Yeah. So I'm hoping. Yeah, I would like to see a 2-1. I think we defensively. I think we're strong enough. If we haven't been able to play good, strong defense against them, anyways. But we'll see if we can change the tune there. Maybe Kirill will be the one to do that for us. Thank you again for that comment there, Dad. And what is this? Is there a way Big Phil can replace me on the? Yeah, no. What? Yeah. I don't know if Dad's ready for the big time.
The big show.
The big time with the spotlights on him and everything. But he definitely would have some stories. I forget his favorite team was I think West Ham, and it's because of who was one of their popular managers back in the 70s.
I forget. Yeah,
I forget, but he loved that manager, and he followed him all around. So I forgot the name, but yeah, everybody, thanks for joining. We'll do this thing on another one, and we are out.
Life is a journey. Don't waste your trip.